doesn't go right. He's had 6 straight games with an interception. Are you concerned about his swagger, if you will, and where his head is at?
Not at all. Give me Josh Allen all day, every day. I'm not worried about it. When I look in his eyes before every game, there's not a worry in my mind. And I guarantee you,
Listen to this track, bitch.
Girl, the way you moving got me in a trance. DJ, turn me up. Ladies, get so jam. I'ma sip Moscato. You gon' move them fast. And I'ma throw this money while you do it with the girl, dropping telephone. I love the way you really go. All I wanna do is sit back and watch you move.
Welcome back to the Views from the Gravel Lot podcast. I am your host, Ben. Welcome you back for episode number 10. I'm delighted to be joined by a close friend of the show, Sam. We'll introduce him in a second, but first I want to check in with Mike, who's coming back on another episode. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. I'm alive. I'm
Yeah,
present.
so that's good. That's reassuring.
Yeah.
That's nice. And so, we do have a good friend of mine, good friend of Mike, coming on the podcast. Sam, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Happy that you're here.
Yeah.
So Sam, much like myself and Mike, lifelong Bills fan, yada yada yada. Just we're gonna basically talk about the Bills offense, and we're gonna answer some of your questions at the end of the show that was submitted on Instagram. So we'll kind of just jump right into it and start by talking about some of the offseason changes that was made by the Bills. Some drastic offseason changes, actually. Obviously, to state the obvious, Stephon Diggs is no longer here. Ken Dorsey's no longer the offensive coordinator. That obviously happened mid-season last year. Mitch Morse no longer the starting center. Gabe Davis is gone. And obviously they got a lot younger. Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Marquez Valdes-Scantling is coming in as a receiver. Ray Davis. So again, sort of addition by subtraction almost, because they did lose a lot more players than they gained. So I'm going to turn this over to our new guest, Sam here. Sam, they did make a lot of moves. What do you think of them? What kind of expectations do you have for this Bills offense? I know, Josh Allen's still your quarterback, so you kind of still have to hold a high standard for him. So I'm curious to see where you're sitting at on that topic.
Yeah, so I really do think the offense is going to be at least relatively similar to the amount of production they have. As long as you have Josh Allen at quarterback, it'll be pretty close to the same. You can expect 40 touchdowns out of him. I think Kincaid's going to be the lead guy. He's going to have over 100 targets easily. We're going to see a lot of James Cook this year. And then third option, it's tough to say. I'm leaning Curtis Samuel for the third option right now. I just think he's got a lot of different things that he can do in the offense, whether it's screen plays or, he can play outside and inside. So I'm curious to see what he can do.
Yeah, and Mike, what do you think? I mean, obviously, I haven't heard your take on this actually. What kind of expectations do you have? You've kind of alluded to the Curtis Samuel. You're big on him, so where do you kind of stand on the offense going into the year?
I think that it's going to look very similar to how it looked, during the second half of the season last year, where we're going to see a lot of James Cook. And I have a feeling that Ray Davis is going to get a lot of red zone work. I think he's going to be the new Latavius Murray in that aspect. And I also, yes, as I've stated beforehand, I think Curtis Samuel is going to be a pivotal point in this offense due to his versatility, where he really could be Deebo Samuel, like Deebo Light, he really could do it all. I still think that our number one, target in the offense is going to be Kincaid, but I think Samuel is going to be a close second to him. And I'm really eager to see how Kincaid, Samuel, and Coleman all play off of each other and what that looks like in the offense,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think any of us really know how the distribution is going to work. Obviously, we all kind of had the similar take that Kincaid was kind of be the lead target getter, but after that, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. But I think for sure, you got Kincaid and Cook. And I think a big part of the Bills offseason was because of the play of those guys last year. Like, I feel like because the emergence of James Cook down the stretch as, arguably I don't even think arguably, but some people arguably a top 10 running back. And obviously, Dalton Kincaid was, your first round pick last year. And I think they were comfortable saying goodbye to Diggs. Not only just to get rid of the drama, but just to get rid of some of that salary cap down the road and sort of, put themselves in a retooling year, but also knowing that you have the pieces going forward to be comfortable with your offense. And I think Dalton Kincaid's in for a big year. Like Sam, you mentioned 100 plus targets. I think he's got a big year poised for him. And then, I like Khalil Shakir. I do think the fan base is generally overrating him.
They're insane
Much
on
like
him.
much like Gabe Davis was after the Chiefs playoff game. I think there is some unrealistic expectations. I've seen people throw out 1,000+ yards for him. I don't think that's fair for him. I think we know he's going to be a good chain moving slot receiver, which is what he is, and
I don't
that
think
is
he's going to get
perfectly
the
fine.
volume to do that.
No, right, and I think you got Keon, you got Samuel, you got Kincaid. Like, you got 4 options there, and even James Cook's going to get the ball catching it, and so I just don't think you're going to see the volume that people think he's going to get. And so that kind of leads us into the next topic, which
Real
was
quick,
go ahead if you want to add
because
something.
you said something, James Cook getting more targets and everything, and I was actually stewing on it for literally the last minute. 2 things. One, would you be surprised if James Cook is top 3 in targets on this team? 2, if he is, do you view that as a detriment to the offense or a positive?
I'm gonna let Sam take that first
Yeah.
because
I would say it could be a bad thing for the offense personally. I think the third option should probably be Samuel or Coleman in the passing game. I think in the running game, obviously, Cook's going to get a lot of carries and attention, but if he's getting most of our targets, that could be a sign that the offense isn't working as well as it could.
yeah, I agree. And I also wanted to point out to the fact that, they did give Curtis Samuel a good amount of money. Like, if
True.
he's, out targeted by James Cook, which in this scenario, James Cook's third in targets, you're likely at Kincaid, Samuel, and then he's probably out targeting either Shakir or somebody else.
Even
Like,
top 3 though, like even if he's second on the team or something. Like
yeah,
let's say James Cook gets like 90 targets this year.
yeah, that would be insane. I think
That would be too many.
yeah, that would be crazy. I mean, I like James Cook a lot. I am very bullish on James Cook as a runner and even as a receiver. I think there's a lot of parallels to I don't like this direct comp, but like sort of the mold of an Austin Eckler, like before he kind of just went downhill as a runner. Like
A lot of targets
I
there.
yeah, like there's a lot of targets there, but I just don't know. I really don't think the team's going to do that. I just don't think that's what they want to do. I think they're going to use him as a runner, and I also think I'd like to point out, if you're going to give him 90 targets plus the volume he's going to get in the run game, like you're beating up your running back before you get to January. Like that could
True.
be a colossal mistake. Like you could get to January and James Cook's just burnt out. And like, yeah, Ray Davis could be a nice compliment. And I think that's why they used an earlier draft pick on him because they don't want to run James Cook into the ground. He is a younger player, but the shelf life on running backs is much shorter than any other position. So I do like that question. It is a good hypothetical, but yeah, I don't see a scenario where he is, second or third in targets. I expect more like, fourth or fifth.
Fair.
Yeah, so I guess that'll take us into the next topic, which is talking about the staff and the scheme of Joe Brady. This is a very interesting topic just because there's a lot of unknowns with Joe Brady. He was an offensive coordinator with the Panthers, obviously, for a couple seasons. He got fired halfway through his second season. And I think it was a bit unfair. I mean, he was working with Sam Darnold as the quarterback, and Christian McCaffrey was in and out of the lineup. Like, obviously, a lot of dysfunction with Matt Rule. I just don't think he was put in a position to succeed. And so we really don't know what a Joe Brady offense looks like at its peak with really good
True.
quarterback play. Because when you go back to even this past season, like he's running Ken Dorsey's system, just sequencing plays differently, calling them differently, scripting games differently. Like that's kind of what he did last year. So there's a lot unknown. but I do know he likes the West Coast style offense, horizontal passing game. They're going to run the ball. Like that's the simple part of it. Obviously he's, as you can see on the screen, he's coached with Sean Payton at Orgeron from LSU and also former LSU offensive coordinator Steve Ensminger. So yeah, I mean, he is a young coach. So like you said, there is a lot of unknowns. So first I'm going to go to Sam. You know, how much confidence do we really have in Joe Brady? Because again, like I said, there is a lot of unknowns with him.
Right. We don't obviously know how his scheme is as a whole because we saw him with Ken Dorsey's playbook all year last year. But I mean, he was better at play calling than Ken Dorsey for the latter half of the season. And I would just say I'm confident in his gamesmanship, his ability to call plays, but he's really going to have to work hard this offseason to build a better scheme and game plan than Ken Dorsey did.
Yeah, 100%. What do you think, Mike?
I I think in order for Joe Brady to be successful this season, he needs to do two things. One, let Josh Allen be fucking Josh Allen. Okay? Let him just give him the green light, everything. Okay? Whatever he wants to do, let him do it. If he wants to run the ball 8 times that week, you fucking let him. You know?
Yeah.
2, I feel like Ken Dorsey wasn't successful because of this, and Joe Brady needs to avoid doing this is I feel like Ken Dorsey got in his own way a lot. It was
Yeah.
like that
Trying to be too
week.
cute.
Yeah, like that week it was like, okay, the intermediate passing game's really clicking, okay? But then you wouldn't see James Cook for literally a quarter and a half. And you're
Right.
like, okay,
You didn't
well,
like the 4 verticals every play, Mike?
yeah, now they adjusted and now there's nothing, and oh, we're running the ball really well this week. Oh, well, now we're gonna completely abandon the running game in the third quarter and just yeah, his scheme was really
Yeah.
terrible. I think if Joe
Yeah.
Brady doesn't get in his own way and just has a fluent offense, they will be successful.
It's really hard to fail Josh Allen. I mean, Ken Dorsey made it an entire year with a top 5 offense. And like, people like to point out the numbers. Like, how much of that is Ken Dorsey or how much of that is Josh Allen? I would say 80% of that's Josh Allen. Like you can't just sit here and say Ken Dorsey. There's a lot of people that even thought like a lot of analysts even like, oh, the Bills offense looks good on, their numbers look good. They're just not scoring. They're making mistakes. Like we can't blame Dorsey. Well, I think you can. You have to hold this team to a high standard. And yeah, it was a warranted fire for sure. And so I kind of wanted to get into this a little bit because this is something that came up in my head. You know, last season, right? Joe Brady's running Ken Dorsey's offense. But when you think about it, it's kind of tough for teams to really prepare for Joe Brady because they don't know what he's going to do. You don't have a full sample size like you do on a Ken Dorsey in terms of play sequencing. You don't really know what you're going to get. So my question to you guys is, do you think, you know, Joe Brady's play calling was a little bit inflated due to the fact that there was a lot of unknown about what he was going to do? And that could bring a competitive advantage midway through the season where, like, okay, we're switching play callers. It's the same scheme, but we're going to run things completely different. We're going to run screens more. We're going to run the ball more. Like, we're going to change it up on you. So, sort of like a curveball to other teams. So, I'm going to go to Mike on this one first. Do you think that was a factor last year?
Yes and no. Like obviously they knew schematically what they had and like what they had, and
Right.
I guess the curveball, the unknown was how Joe Brady was going to mix up the plays and run the offense. Part of me feels like that's going to be like there's going to be no curveball effect.
Okay. All right, Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, a prime example of this is after the Cowboys game. I think it was Micah Parsons said they had no idea that we were going to run the ball like almost every play. They were not prepared for it at all, and they just had no idea we would do something like that. So I think that kind of speaks volumes to that, and
Mhm.
just the confusion that they had that game. They didn't realize that we could do that to a team. So
Mhm. Right.
I feel like that
Yeah.
was because of Dorsey's inconsistencies, though.
I also just think the
Yeah,
Cowboys' run defense was horrible, and nobody really took
it
advantage of that
was.
all
Yeah,
year.
that's true.
I
Yeah.
mean, the Packers came in as a 7th seed on the road, and just ran all over them. I think even Jordan Love said that they kind of looked at the film of us playing them, and like, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna run the ball with Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones went crazy. Like,
He had
they had
three
an insane
touchdowns that
game.
game, right?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Like, so yeah, I do think it's a factor for sure, just because like I do think switching play callers does provide a competitive advantage. But I don't think we can take away from Joe Brady because of that. Like, that's not his fault. Um, so yeah, I mean, I am interested to see what a full season of Joe Brady looks like. I don't know how much different this offense is going to be. Like we've mentioned, there's a lot of unknown. Like,
You don't
it'll
know
be
what the
very
ceiling or
fun to
floor
see.
is.
Yeah, you really don't. And that's kind of the fun thing with this offense, because like a lot of the pieces are it's just going to be completely different. Gabe Davis is gone, Mitch Morse is gone. Like, they're shuffling parts around. There's a new play caller. Obviously, Josh is still at the helm, so we know the offense at the very least is going to be fine. Like, like, it just, how good is it going to be? Um, so yeah. So I wanted to ask this one last question about the scheme and the staff. It sort of touches base on what we've already talked about, but the ground game. Like, I'll go to Sam first. Like, do you really think the Bills, like, I mean, it seems to me, based on all the moves they've made, they want to pound the rock. Like, they just want to move the football that way. That's just kind of the offense they want to run. So like, how much more of a running offense do you really think the Bills are going to be this year?
Well, if you look at the end of last year, I mean, they were running the ball a lot. I mean, James Cook was what, top 5 in rushing, number 5, I
Yeah,
think, in yards.
yeah,
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think we can
All-purpose yards.
expect that. It really depends on the wide receivers, in my opinion. It depends on if you can trust them, specifically Keon Coleman, if he develops or not. Uh, and if not, then we'll have to run the ball more. But I mean, we'll see what happens there. So
yeah.
This makes me think about week one, like coming right out of the gate, those like first two series. I really
Mhm.
wonder how they're gonna go at that. Like, do you think in that first series they're just prototypical, handoff, third
Yeah,
down, or like you think they're gonna try to like find like a what
like a
word do I
big
want to use
play,
here?
like a spark.
Yeah, to see if there's like that player that they know that they can go to. Like who's get like these last few years, third down, typically the ball's going to Diggs.
Right.
Before that, it's going to Beasley. Who's going to be that new guy that Josh Allen's like, you know what? He's going to be my guy when I need a bail.
On third down, I want to say Shakir. I just think you look at the playoff games, and I'm not saying Shakir is going to be like everybody's saying, like this 1,000-yard receiver, like he's going to have this crazy breakout, because I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think Khalil Shakir is going to be that guy on third down. I mean, he is the best separator on the team when you think about it. Like, Keon Coleman, he's not a good separator, right? Curtis Samuel,
True.
he's a good separator, but I just don't think he's going to be used in the slot as much as Shakir, right? So I think the real chain mover, much like Cole Beasley, we saw in the first few years of Josh Allen, that's going to be his guy. Like, Cole Beasley was Josh's guy on third down. Like, we remember it was called third and Beasley for a reason. Like, they just
True.
trusted to give him the ball. And Beasley was never like this superstar receiver, but he was always Josh's guy on third down when the play broke down. And I just envision a similar outcome with Shakir. And look, I'm not saying he's going to be Cole Beasley, but he can be like him on those scenarios. So
True.
I would definitely say Khalil Shakir. Um, I think it's
I
going
throw
to
an
take
X
some
factor
time.
out there.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We never talk about him. Honest to God, I feel like we probably haven't even mentioned him in probably 6 episodes.
All right.
I think that the X factor go-to man on third down, and I hate to say it, is going to be Dawson Knox.
Really? That's crazy to me.
There was
in
times, it's
2024,
crazy. It
I
is
don't know.
crazy, but there was times last year where Josh Allen seemingly trusted him a lot more on third down in certain circumstances as opposed to Kincaid, as opposed to Diggs down the stretch. You'd see random plays with Dawson Knox on third down. Yes, it'd be his one of two catches of the game, but
You
I don't
know,
know.
I want to say that Dawson's more that red zone guy though. Like that's where his bread and butter is. I don't think Dawson's gonna be in there. I don't even think he's gonna be on the field on most third down scenarios, to be honest with you. Like I feel like Dawson, which we will get into later when we talk about the tight end room, will be on the field for blocking scenarios because he is probably the best blocker on the team as far as tight ends go. I just don't see him really needing to do that anymore. Like, yeah, that's what we
So much
drafted him to
money.
be. Yeah, it is, and it sucks to really think about, but like, I just really think the team's operating to believe Dalton Kincaid is going to be that guy.
He
I
should.
mean,
He definitely
he
should.
should be, yeah, and I think that the team, yeah, he'll be out there on third downs, but how often? I don't think a ton. So it could be an interesting scenario. If we're talking first and goal at like the 7, sure. Or third and goal at like the 7, sure. Like then I could say, yeah, Dawson's probably a reliable target just because his catch radius and he's just always for some reason catching touchdowns. But yeah,
Ain't
that's
that
just
true?
kind of where I feel on that. So
Fair enough.
all right, so we'll move on to the position groups now. And this one we won't have to spend too much time on it. I'm sure you all know. It is quarterback, and obviously leading the way is Josh Allen, who we all know how good he is. He is incredible. Not too much time to spend about that. Obviously, we did bring in Mitch Trubisky as the backup, and Shane Buechele is the third quarterback who was signed from Kansas City. Not going to spend too much time on him, but we will talk about Mitch Trubisky just for the fact that, backup quarterback, when you're in a competitive conference and you might lose your starter for 1 or 2 games, we've seen it happen to teams last year a lot. I want to go to Mike first here. Are you comfortable with Mitch as your backup quarterback? I know you could do worse, but I also think there's a world where you could do better as well. So, where do you sit on the Mitch Trubisky train?
You know, it's really circumstantial. It depends on the weekly matchup. First off, I mean, they could be playing, I don't know, they could be playing a really hurt team or just a, easier matchup. My first instinct, the first thought that comes to my head is if Mitch Trubisky starts, we're fucked. Okay. Oh God. Oh my God. He's just mid. He's just chronically mid. And
Is
Yeah,
he even mid? Like, I
no,
don't know.
mean-
probably not. No. You know what? No. But I'm like actually getting physically upset at the thought of Mitch Trubisky having to start a game because what's wrong with Josh Allen at that point?
Yeah.
I think all the city would give a shit about is what's wrong with Josh Allen? When is he coming back? If he's not coming back, well then who gives a fuck what Mitch Trubisky does because we're done.
All right. Let me
I'm
just
pretty
throw
sure-
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure everybody in Buffalo is only hoping he takes kneel downs at the end of
I
games
know.
here.
Yep.
But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw a hypothetical scenario out for you, okay? Just on this alone. All right, Josh is gonna miss only probably 1 week, right? He's got a relatively minor injury, but we're gonna
What
we're gonna
week?
sit him out. We're playing the Titans.
But what week?
Oh, I'm running the ball every play.
Like,
Like
what's
what point
what's
of
your
the season?
well? When do we play the Titans? It's probably I think it's real earlier in the season.
Isn't
I think
it
it's
like
in
week 3
October.
or something?
It's pretty early.
Okay.
So
Oh, I didn't know you
Um,
meant literally playing the Titans. I thought you just
yes,
hypothetically meant we're playing
no,
the
yeah,
Titans.
the Titans this year. Like I'm just throwing out a random matchup just to like be like, are you fine with him playing that team for a week? Like, is there a single team in the NFL you think Mitch Trubisky can beat if he starts
Yeah.
at quarterback for us?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean,
How long
yeah.
is that list?
Like 8 teams,
not
maybe.
long. 8 is crazy. 8 is
I don't
fucking
even
crazy.
know.
If it was 8, he might be a starter somewhere. Mm,
He could,
Oh,
depending on how our
You
run
got to remember
game
this is
but
this is still a very good defense. I get.
you know what? He
I
did
get where
throw
he's
7
going.
touchdowns in a game before. All right, that did happen.
Did he actually?
did he
Yep.
Oh
actually?
my god!
Yes,
I can't
yes,
even.
yes.
I think I remember that. Okay. Wow.
Yes,
All right.
yes. Wasn't he the fucking Nickelodeon MVP?
Yeah, he
Get this
was. That was
motherfucker
also a
outta
meme.
here.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Sure, he's
sorry. If
buddies
he
with
ever listens to
Josh, you
this, he's
know.
gonna hate me. But
No,
like
he probably will, but no, he won't listen,
someday,
but
what if he
if
what if
he
he
did
hears the
hear,
clip? What if he hears the
if he
clip?
hears the clip, then I think
You know what?
we're
I'm
pretty
sorry.
much
You were
done
drafted
as a
ahead of
podcast.
Patrick Mahomes, but the only way we're walking out of that game is if Will Levis is just as ass as Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sometimes we struggle to even win with Josh, so yeah,
For
maybe
some
we can beat.
fucking, you know what? But Derrick Henry's gone.
Yeah,
Derrick Henry's gone.
but I feel like Tony Pollard's the type of back to just go crazy on us.
Yeah,
All
like I
right,
said.
I feel like there's enough talk about the quarterback room just because it's pretty exhausting talking about Mitch Trubisky. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
running
triggered.
backs. Yeah, me too. Running backs. Okay, we kind of already talked about this room in the lead up about the staff and the offseason changes. Obviously, we have James Cook, who I have as an 88 and is a star player. This is a young room, 24 years old is the average age. You got Ray Davis, you got Ty Johnson. Frank Gore Jr. is an interesting name that could, I don't know if he's going to make the roster, but could be a practice squad guy. And then
Wouldn't be mad
obviously,
at it.
no, I wouldn't either. And then Darrington Evans, who has kind of always been a camp body for us. So I won't talk too much about him, but I wanted to throw this scenario out there because a lot of people like this player on what he did last year for the Bills. So I'll go to Sam. Obviously, they drafted Ray Davis. He's gonna get a lot of goal line work, but Ty Johnson, man, like he showed some juice. Like, do
He
you
did,
think
yeah.
is there any scenario at all where he's number two behind James Cook?
So in the beginning of the year, I think for sure he'll be the number two. I think McDermott will struggle to play Ray Davis at the start like he always does with rookies. But I mean, Ty Johnson, he had the Jets game where he was going off in that one. I mean, he had the sideline touchdown, what, like
Mhm.
30 yards? He was
Yeah.
explosive at times. So, I mean, he's a good backup option. I would say Ray Davis has way higher potential, but um, it's interesting. And I think Frank Gore Jr., he could crack the roster at some point potentially, depending on injuries. So we'll see. We'll see what
Right.
happens there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about the Ty Johnson uh RB2 situation, Mike?
I think it's a weird scenario. I think Ray Davis will be the RB2 due to draft capital and just due to like need, you know what I mean? Like for
Hmm.
what they need out of him.
Yeah.
Scheme fit, I should say.
Hmm.
But I think if like there's ever a point in the season where James Cook just gets dinged up or hurt, I think it's very likely that Ty Johnson would be the starter rather than Ray Davis.
Okay,
Due
so I
again to
get I
scheme
get what you're
fit.
saying because there's a lot of similarities in their game. Like,
Yes.
Ray Davis is sort of your short yardage goal line guy, but you're saying Ty's not going to be that guy. I get
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it'd
Yeah.
be a total committee that day. Like
Hmm.
the carries would get split pretty evenly, but
Yeah.
I'm never really going to see a point this entire season where Ray Davis is getting anywhere close to like more than 12 carries in a game somehow,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah, I don't I think this is pretty much it's pretty easy just like quarterback. This is James Cook's backfield. Like he's gonna get the majority of the love. Um, but I think it is an interesting scenario because in today's age, like, running back, like I said, it's a short shelf life. Like, you always want a guy ready to go. And I think both of these guys are capable of filling in, even as a committee, like you said, like I'd be comfortable with that. Like, you know, Josh Allen really, as a runner himself, like can kind of do the work that those guys need to do anyways. So,
True.
he already elevates the rushing attack in himself. So we don't need to have like this two-headed monster of backs, which is what
No.
we've been trying to accomplish for God knows
Years.
how long. Like, Singletary and Moss, like we're gonna pick running backs back to back and we're gonna just pound the rock with these guys. Like, no, you don't
Which is
need to
really
have
weird
that.
because we're
Yeah.
literally before like pre-Allen, you're coming off the high of fucking Fred Jackson and CJ Spiller, and it's like,
And even
what did
even
that do?
LaShawn McCoy and like I mean
True.
it was weird, and I feel like the team sometimes overinvests in that position, and they put too much stock into it. When you got Josh Allen, you
I
really
think
don't need a star.
that's
Like
some
James Cook's
PTSD.
fine. Yeah, it is.
That's some drought
But
PTSD. We can't run
but
the ball like that because when we used to do that, we were dog shit. Now we have a top
yeah,
5 quarterback in the game. Him, you know?
yeah, 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 for sure. So, um, and then there's a lot of talk about this, but I wanted to go to you guys first, real quick, before we move on to wide receivers, which will be a more lengthier discussion. But I think he is. But I'm gonna go to Sam. Do you think after the season James had, like, is he in your eyes a top 10 running back?
Yes. So, I mean, I would think right now he is in his prime of his career,
Hmm.
and he is for sure top 10. I mean, in terms of workload, he'll be given definitely top 10 carries and targets this year for running backs. So he should be, I would say, top 5 in yards again, like last year. So, and he was what, top 3 in total yards last year.
Yeah,
So I think the ceiling's pretty high for him right now.
right. What do you think, Mike?
I think he's easily top 10, to be honest. I don't think he's in like that lower tier of top 10 than
Hmm.
10 though. You know, like
Yeah,
between 7 and 10, I would say.
yeah.
But
There's a
yes,
lot of good backs
100%.
in this league. I mean, I
Yeah,
think,
he's not like Gibbs or CMC where it's like you
mhm,
watch them and you're like, holy shit, this guy can go
yeah,
insane. You know,
yeah.
take
He has
over a whole
moments
game.
though. He
He
really,
does. He
really, he
does.
has moments. But yeah,
100%.
I don't think you can rely on him to do that every game. But I think he's definitely in the top 10 for me. Like, I think a lot of people talk about, he doesn't have good hands or whatever. Like,
Which is weird.
okay, which is like it's the same kind of conversation we have about Josh Allen and his interceptions. Like, he's still a really, really good player. Like, who cares?
So explain
Like,
this to me.
mhm,
So rookie year, 32 targets, 21 receptions.
right.
I'd say that's a pretty decent catch rate.
Yep.
Second year, 54 targets, 44 receptions. I mean, I just don't
No,
know how
That's
to
yeah.
because
see how people say he has bad hands.
Mhm,
people look at like the catch against Philadelphia or the drop, I should say, and they
mhm.
overreact to everything else. And that's the
Yeah.
one play they'll remember about that. So
Yeah. It's a lot of cherry picking when it comes to stuff like that. Like, it's unfair to the player, and it happens to not just Bills
So
players, but around the league. So,
it
I mean,
drives me
it's
insane.
annoying. It is really
Even that
annoying.
Philly game, I'm looking at it right now. 7 targets, 6 catches for 57 yards.
Yeah, and
Like,
all everybody talks about is the drop.
oh my God.
Like, the guy had a really good game, but it just gets thrown out the window.
It's out of pocket.
It is. All right, so that brings us to wide receivers, which we've already talked about in much length. So we'll kind of retouch on some of these topics, but again, this is a very, very different room than a year ago. A lot of changes. Obviously, Stephon Diggs being the biggest one, to state the obvious. Gabe Davis is gone. And even some of the depth pieces. Kick returner Deontay Hardy's gone. Trent Sherfield's gone. Like, it's probably not going to matter much, but
I
it is a change and it is different. So we're going to talk about some of these guys because I think after the first, let's see here, first five guys, it's anybody's shot to make that sixth spot. I really think like it's pretty much wide open after the first five. So I'm going to start with this: Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Matt Collins. They're all pretty much locks to make based on the money they're making and the draft picks and what we allocated to them. So who makes the team as the sixth receiver? Is it Chase Claypool, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella, the Justin Shorter, which a lot of people have asked about and we will talk about later. Tyrell Shavers is an interesting name. Not many people know about. And then you got some undrafted guys: Brian Thompson, Lawrence Keys, and Xavier Johnson. So Sam, who makes that final? Who gets the final cut in your receiver room for you?
yeah, so we technically could have, what, 7 receivers
We could
on
go
the
with
team?
7, but I just don't think it would make sense.
I would say if it is 6, probably Claypool, the way he's playing so far.
Hmm.
If he continues to play like that. But if not, I would say probably Isabella makes it again. I don't know. They, for some reason, really like him. So, and then I'm not as high on Justin Shorter as most other fans are. So I would probably like lean towards KJ Hamler personally.
Mm-hmm.
He does have health concerns, but if he can stay healthy, I don't see why he can't make the team. So
Yeah. Mike, what do you got for us as that wide receiver 6?
I also agree that it should be Claypool if there's even anything there of substance.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think if they keep 7, if I'm not mistaken, Justin Shorter can play special teams in some
He
capacity.
can.
So
I
they
want to
really like
say
that.
I want to say Gunner is what he does play on special teams.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a huge difference maker. Unless Claypool is just there really is something there and they feel that they can milk out that untapped potential.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will be Shorter just because of the dual threat ability with the
Right.
special teams, and he's a wide receiver 6, I mean,
Yeah. And I know I guess I'll go here. Like, yeah, Claypool has been the name that has been brought up in OTAs. He's been like probably the most intriguing, polarizing player so far, just because he's been making plays. And when you make plays, you're gonna get talked about. And he has been doing that. So
got the talent.
yeah, I would say he's definitely the leader in the clubhouse at the moment. But again, a lot can change between now and August. Like he could just have a terrible attitude going into training camp and just play like shit and not win that spot. So yeah, and especially we're talking about wide receiver 6. This is a guy that's not going to see the field a ton. So would you rather prioritize that for a player like Shorter who's going to play special teams for you, or would you rather have a guy who's capable of stepping in right away if you get a flurry of injuries? That's up for you to decide. I'm not going to answer that, but that's
I'd
just
want Claypool to
what goes
play
into
if he
it.
made the roster. I'd want him to play over Matt Collins. If Chase Claypool makes the roster, I think he should be our 4th wide receiver, not our 6th. But I wouldn't
I
be
I want a
think-
surprised if he
blocking wide
doesn't.
receiver, though. I feel
Yeah,
like
I think the
yeah,
blocking receiver is going to be Keon Coleman. I feel like they're really going to try
I
to
think so too.
push that.
I want to say this, like I think the special teams matters a lot more than it probably should, just because this team has also allocated a lot of resources to special teams. Like Tyler Matakevich, who isn't capable of playing on an NFL defense, like starting at all, like kept getting contract after contract because he could play special teams really well. And if Shorter kind of goes out in camp, doesn't have a great camp as a receiver, but like is just absolutely dominant as a gunner and like is just a killer on special teams, like much like the Patriots did with Matthew Slater, like that's something to definitely keep in mind. I like the KJ Hamler experiment, just because he's a former 2nd-round pick. He's never really been all that bad when you really look. I mean, he's never really had great quarterback play. I mean, Denver was just a disaster to go to for him. But he's always been, a quality separator, like a guy can work underneath. And, it might be nice to have that backup guy behind Shakir and Samuel because, like, you don't have a ton of separators. So he's something I want to keep an eye on. But then, yeah, I would say Claypool. I mean, I think the biggest thing this room lacks is top end speed. Claypool runs a 4.38. That's fast. Like that in
Yeah.
itself could probably give him a really good shot at making this team because it's just a very slow wide receiver room. And, in today's age, you need to have some juice, especially with a guy like Josh Allen in his arm. You gotta give him some guy who's going to go down there and run and see if he can track the ball down. So, that's what I would say.
I'm going to say it. Besides Kincaid, sheer potential wise, I think Chase Claypool has the highest potential out of the entire wide receiver room.
Okay. All right. That's
no,
Is that really
Well,
crazy? I mean,
it
honestly.
is.
It's crazy.
Are you smoking crack right now?
And what do you mean? You don't remember him putting his
Get out
balls
of the
on
room with
Tre'Davious
Aaron
White's neck?
Rodgers.
You don't remember that shit?
Dude. All right. Wow. Okay.
I'm serious. You don't
Okay,
remember?
I know you're serious. That's what's concerning about this whole
Yeah,
conversation.
Chase
that's
Claypool has the
unbelievable.
highest possible ceiling out of everyone in the receiving room besides Kincaid.
Maybe
Not that he
2
will
years
hit the
ago.
ceiling.
Maybe 2 years ago.
What's the
Like,
difference? Because
because
he
The
didn't work
there's
out on the
five other
Bears
guys that
and he
are
never played on the
significantly close.
Dolphins.
Dude, there's 5 other guys that are significantly closer to their ceiling than he is. Like, if you're gonna hit
True.
on Chase Claypool, that's like saying that a pitcher is gonna hit a grand slam, in a 0-2 count against the
Okay.
best pitcher in the MLB.
Fair.
Like,
Okay. Chicago Bears trade pick 33 for Chase Claypool earlier that season at the trade deadline. What do
Right.
you what do you think they're thinking he's going to be?
Okay, that's the Bears we're talking
that
about
was
here.
Besides the point,
he's a
what do you
different
think
player,
they
though.
think he's going to be?
They think
Why
he's
would they
going to be
trade that
their
pick?
wide receiver 2 at least.
Okay. He has that potential to at least be a wide receiver 2 in some capacity. Not saying he'd reach it.
Yeah.
I'm just
No,
saying I think the truth from physical intangibles and pure talent, that ceiling is crazy.
I mean, outside of that rookie year, though, like he just, I like Buffalo as a landing spot for him. I will say, like, if he
Best
could sign
quarterback he's
anywhere,
ever had.
if he could sign anywhere in the league, Buffalo was probably the best spot for him because it's a really good team, but they don't get a ton of attention outside of Josh Allen. Like, it's a place where you can go and focus on your game, play with a good quarterback, see if you can fix your career. Because if he doesn't here, he's not going to do it anywhere else.
True.
So
don't
I
even
do like
blame you.
that. So as a wide receiver 6, I'm fine with that. I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 4 like you thought you threw out there, like over Hollins or them, just because of the sheer fact they gave those players money. Like, they're giving those guys, they're basically essentially guaranteeing them spots on the 53. Claypool doesn't have that guarantee. So that tells me, like, yeah, they don't really have the same belief. So he is the wide receiver 6.
That could be
I
good for
would say.
Claypool too, though, having to work
Yeah.
for it. 'cause-
Yeah, I don't
For
think it
sure.
was necessary for them to give him that guarantee because he hasn't earned it. But if he goes out and like I said, he shows some sort of substance,
Yeah.
there's no reason he can't be a wide receiver 4 or 5. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. I wanted to switch the topic up on here in receivers while we're still on it. And this is to a player we previously mentioned, in Khalil Shakir. And this is a very interesting conversation that I don't think enough people have had with the Bills, whether it's nationally, locally, wherever. And it's about Khalil Shakir. Because I think the general consensus is that, he's gonna be this guy. He's gonna be wide receiver 2. He's gonna explode. Like, this guy could be, really good for Josh Allen. Like, I know where you guys stand on it, but everybody else doesn't. So, how overrated? I'm not saying he's going to be a bad player. We're not saying this. Let me preface this. We're not saying Khalil Shakir is going to be a bad player. I think he'd be a good, solid player for the Bills. But how overrated do you think how much do you think he's being overrated by the fan base? Sam, I'm going to go to you. Where do you sit on that?
Right. So I would say most of our fan base thinks he's a 1,000-yard receiver or, Josh's favorite target or whatever. I think Shakir, I would be ecstatic if he had 800 yards this year. And I think it's going to be more so in the 600 to 700 range. I don't see him being this, 100 target, even 80 target guy. He's probably our 4th option, I would say. He'll be a reliable target on like 3rd down or whatever, but I just don't see it. I don't see what most Bills fans are seeing in him.
Yeah, and he, like you said, there is no shame in being a reliable 3rd down option. And, like, you can carve out a really good career. There's a ton of guys in the NFL that have had a really good career just being a guy, like, you don't have to be a superstar to be, like, well known. So I'll go to you, Mike. Where do you kind of feel about that?
You know what? Khalil Shakir gets 1,000 yards this year. I will buy a Khalil Shakir autographed jersey and we'll give it away.
Okay. You heard it here first.
That's where I stand on it. I think he's chronically overrated. I mean, I understood the Gabe Davis hype because 4 touchdowns, 200 yards in one singular game. That's insane. He had 2 big plays. Yes, they were in the playoffs. other than that though, like what has he truly done to warrant this kind of like love, this kind of response, this kind of
Hmm.
praise? He hasn't done anything, like he's had moments, but he hasn't done anything substantial enough for me to truly believe that he even deserves a second contract with this team, let
Right.
alone be 1,000-yard receiver, wide receiver too. Like that's just crazy to
Yeah.
me.
I mean, we're talking about a guy that has 3 career total touchdowns. Like, I mean, there's
And
not
two
much
came
to
2 weeks in
really,
a row.
yeah,
Big whoop.
we're not really looking at a guy that, Khalil Shakir is more of a projection to me. Like, we don't know what Khalil Shakir can be. Like, he's not going to be that 1,000-yard receiver. But like I said, like, I'm perfectly fine within that range. Sam mentioned the number of, 600, 700 yards. Like, that's a good receiver. It shouldn't be viewed at in a negative light like that he's that receiver. Because I think people are setting themselves up for unrealistic expectations. And when he has, 700, 800 yards, like, people are going to be upset, but they shouldn't be. And you know what? If he does get 1,000 yards, I will be absolutely ecstatic because then at that point in time, we'll have him, Keon as a second round pick, and then Kincaid. So like you can't really complain, but I just don't see it. I really don't. And there's a reason they put 2 guys in front of him in the depth chart, and Curtis Samuel, and not yet, but he's probably going to be a Keon Coleman. So that's where I kind of stand on that. I would say that pretty much covers it for receivers. A lot of interesting talk about the depth of the room. Obviously, it's a room that it's not great. I did have him ranked at 28th. You'll see on the graphic. You
Yeah,
guys can't
very
see it,
mid.
but it's a young room, small injury concerns with some guys who can getting beat up, but I did put Shakir as a breakout candidate just for the fact that everybody did talk about it, but we personally don't stand on that hill, and that's perfectly fine.
I don't even think
Um,
Shakir is going to be on the roster in 2 years.
I think that's crazy, but okay.
In 2 years, I don't think he'll be on the roster.
Eh, give,
I
give
mean,
him
if
some
he's still in a
time.
bag by a different
We
team,
can't.
sure.
I don't think it's fair to really say that yet because we haven't seen him in a full season where he's not behind Diggs and Davis. Like
Or injured.
he's gonna get a shot. Like he'll have a chance, a bigger chance than before. And yeah, so and then we got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's pretty much a guarantee to make the roster as well. Didn't spend too much time talking about him. Not really worth it. It's wide receiver for it's gonna be like a 300-yard receiver. So
Yeah,
maybe not even.
maybe.
Anyways, so we'll move on to tight ends. A room that is really fun and probably one of my most favorite groups on the roster because of the sheer potential it has. Obviously, Dalton Kincaid, who I think I think it's universally agreed he has the most potential out of any player on this offense in terms of what they can really be. And then obviously you got Dawson Knox, who they're paying a lot of money as a tight end too, unfortunately. Quentin Morris is your tight end 3. Zach Davidson, who's actually, many people don't know, but he's been having a really good training camp, or not training camp, OTA so far. And then Trey McKitty as well. So probably only be 3 of those guys that make the team, which will be Kincaid, Knox, and Morris. So the general question I want to throw out there will be a jump ball. Actually, I'll just give it to Sam first again, just because he's our guys. Do you really? I mean, we kind of already talked about this, but do you really think Dalton Kincaid can be the guy? Like, I'm not saying Stephon Diggs level of production because he is a tight end, but do you think he can be the number 1 option in this offense, not for just this year, but for years to come?
Yeah, so I think he's gonna easily be 100 target guy. We need him to be pretty much with our receiving room. So you look at a guy like Sam Laporta out of last year's class. I'm not saying he's as good as him all around, but as a pure pass catcher, I mean, I think his ceiling is as high as anybody right now. I mean, I think he's probably a top 3 tight end within the next 2 or 3 years.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, you look at Kansas City and Travis Kelce. I hate to compare him to Kelce because Kelce's obviously, you know, the best tight end ever probably, but I think he could put up Kelsey type numbers in this offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think definitely like you give him 3 or 4 years, I think he can get there for sure.
Mhm.
Um,
It'll take time for sure, but I think
Mike's
he can.
Mike's jumping at the gun here. I'm just gonna let him take this one. So
Yeah.
Because Kelsey type numbers. I mean, Jesus, I'd be happy if he got 75% of Kelsey's numbers. 75% of Kelsey's numbers, he's still probably a Hall of Famer,
yeah.
Yeah.
God, I mean, yeah, Kincaid's a dog. He's gonna be a star. I don't know. I don't want to put too much on him to be the man. Like
Mm.
I think he's going to be a star. Yes, I think he's locked for 100 targets if healthy. But he's not going to be Diggs.
No.
He's not going to be holy shit, like we have to stop this guy or we're going to give up 3 touchdowns, 140 yards, 8 receptions, and we're not going to win this game.
Mm. Yeah.
I think Kincaid like needs this year to really I think this will set the tone for who he's going to be throughout his career, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
whether he really is going to be that top 3 tight end in the game and is going to just take that next step forward, or if he's, not ready for that kind of limelight yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the fun thing with Dalton Kincaid, like, yeah, he's not gonna be Diggs just because like it's not even fair to compare him because he's a receiver and a tight end, but you know, it's gonna really change the outcome of this like the course of this offense. Like does that like keep the Bills from being like, well, we don't want to really pay anybody to be our receivers. Like, are they fine? Like, does Dalton Kincaid basically prove to the Bills this year that like you can go out there with a committee with a Curtis Samuel Shakir and Keon Coleman and basically say that's fine, like and just have a bunch of guys. Like that's where I'm kind of curious where things fall. Like to me, the kind of season that Dalton Kincaid is going to have is going to determine the future of this offense drastically. Like, I think if he has a good enough year that we think he's going to have, the Bills are just not going to pay a receiver top dollar. They're going to save that money for Kincaid for when he needs to get his contract. They might go out for a 1 year kind of thing, like to push for a Super Bowl when they think they're more ready to spend that money. But I just really think like if he does well enough, like in that role, that the Bills are just basically, that's going to be what we're going to do. We're going to just have a bunch of guys, and we're going to trust Josh and Dalton to just kind of run the show. I don't know if you guys have the same thought, but that's just kind of
I
where
don't
I
like
stand.
that. Like I don't
You
I don't
don't.
feel good about it. Like
You don't feel good about it?
no,
You don't.
because that almost feels it just feels lazy as fuck, to be honest. Like
Is it?
time will tell, but like I don't know. You can't tell me that even if Kincaid just has a monster season, that if next year we have an opportunity to be in the running for T. Higgins, you wouldn't do it.
I think that just depends on the play of
You know what I want to
Coleman.
know? So true, it does depend on the play of Coleman. And again, the lazy part of it comes back to me because it's like maybe Coleman was their guy the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
How are you looking at this receiver room if they traded up and got a guy like Brian Thomas Jr.? What are you feeling right now? Like what is going through your head? Is Kincaid still the man?
I think so. I'd be not to give a shot at Keon. I'd be more confident in the receiver room for sure. Like, it, it's Keon's more of a dart throw. Brian Thomas is a more surefire thing. Keon,
Is
they
he?
drafted him. I think so. I mean, he was where he was his draft position, and the team that drafted him. It indicates that a team that is already paying $100+ million to other receivers still felt the need to draft him in round one. Like I just think that just shows the talent in itself. But
They
back
are
to my
paying
point
two
though is
wide receivers twos though.
yeah, it's just
Incredible.
like the Bills, I don't know. The Bills just took a shot with Keon. I don't think he was ever really the guy. Because if he was the guy, they would have been comfortable taking him at 28. I mean,
What's
they just
frustrating
kind of,
is with Kincaid, there's no plan B. If he's not the man, there is no one else that can be.
well, if he's not the man, he'll always, I think he's already proven that as a baseline, he's going to be a top 10 tight end or
Agreed.
closer to top 5. But like that 6 to 7 range.
I
Like,
agree.
but so if you have that, then at least you know what you have in your office. Like I said, based on the type of season he had, if he's sticks around where he had as a rookie year, then I think you're more comfortable. You're more you're more poised to go out and spend $30+ million on a receiver, like a Higgins, like an Ayuk. But I don't think they take that same approach if he has a crazy good season. I really don't.
You still think Ayuk plays this season on the Niners?
I don't know. I really don't. These things are tough to predict. I mean, the other day he was on FaceTime with Jaden Daniels saying that, that the Niners don't want him back, but that could be bullshit. So uh, I don't know. It's the
If the
Niners did
Bills
take
pulled
Pierce
something
Hall,
out of their
so
ass and traded for Ayuk during the summer, are you immediately back in on the hype train of this isn't a fucking like a regroup year, like we're all
it's
in again?
the standard's higher for sure. 100%. The standard is doubled or damn near tripled. Like
I
I'm
think Ayuk
expecting
would be
Super Bowl or
insane on
bust.
this team. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
he'd
but they
be
would never do
absolutely
that though.
insane.
They
I
just
wish they
aren't.
would.
They
I
just
wish.
you wish that, but like honestly, like they've taken that approach in the past with spending all that money on Von Miller, and at the time, it's even then it just seemed crazy just because how old he was, but like they've taken that approach is what I'm saying, where they push the chips on the table and it's backfired, and I think the biggest thing is it scared them to do it again. It really has,
You'll never
and
win
it's
that way.
yeah, and you might be right, but
I don't want Philip Rivers.
I
I
don't
don't.
either. I don't
Okay.
either.
Like
Trust me, man.
I just I can't. And the more time that elapses, the more I feel like we got fucking Philip Rivers, which just
Don't
stresses me
say
That's a
out.
that,
terrible
okay?
thought.
Don't put that out there
That's
right
really
now.
bad.
I just want to
Just
think
saying.
positivity.
Just saying.
Don't even stop. Okay, all right.
It's an optimistic day or a
Yeah, I know.
pessimistic day.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not optimistic. Okay. Yeah, so I mean I guess that would cover it. I mean, I did want to talk about this a little bit briefly though. About the role of Dawson Knox. You know, will we see more or less of Dawson Knox? Like, yes, Kincaid was drafted first round pick, but Dawson can kind of get involved in the run game and be a red zone guy for you. So I'm curious, now that Dawson or Dalton Kincaid's got the full reins as a tight end one. Sam, do you think we see more of Dawson Knox? Do we see less of him? Like the easy answer would be less, but you also could say he's going to be involved in rundowns and he's also going to be your red zone guy.
Yeah, he's going to be on the field a lot in the run game for blocking. I don't think I don't think that's his strong suit at all. So
Yeah.
obviously Knox is going to be out there for rundowns, but red zone, I don't think Knox is going to be the guy anymore. He has been in the past, but I think Kincaid has taken that role from him. I think maybe on rundowns and every once in a while in the red zone he'll play a few snaps, but I mean, if he gets 5 touchdowns, I'd be shocked.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I'd say
I
it's more likely he
honestly, I
gets
wouldn't
5
either.
touchdowns than Shakir gets 1,000 yards.
I would agree. I just think Josh just really trusts him. And at the end of the day, like Josh is really going to be calling the shots for the offense. As much as Joe Brady's going to have a say in the terminology and the play calling or whatever, Josh is going to be the end all be all. And he's going to go
True.
to his guys. He's going to tell Joe Brady, I want Dawson on the field, in the red zone.
Kincaid wasn't that great close either.
I
Like
just,
within
I don't
10
think
yards,
that's the
he
kind of
was
tight end he
okay.
is. Like,
No,
he's just not going to be the guy you're going
move
to
the
throw on a
chains.
fade route and just like
No.
he's a chain mover. You're right. Like that's what he is.
I'd
Like the
rather
way,
Keon be the red zone
yeah.
option than
I
Kincaid.
think that Keon, Dawson, Ray Davis. Like you're gonna see a different package on the field entirely, I think, in the red zone. So
I wouldn't even hate optioning Curtis Samuel out of the backfield and like those,
no, yeah, I think
you know,
they're gonna get fun with that.
they could
You
get
go
they
back
could
to
get human joysticky with that.
I mean, you go back to even the time that Brady spent with Carolina, like, Curtis Samuel had his best year as a pro. Like nobody talked about Curtis Samuel before Joe Brady got there, really. Like Joe Brady got there and Curtis Samuel, oh my God, look at the things he's doing. He's running the ball. This
He can do
guy,
everything.
he's
Yeah.
fun. And like, people started talking about Curtis Samuel. He got a lot of fans and a lot of followers, and it kind of just, went downhill after he went to Washington and didn't have the same treatment. But yeah. So that covers it for tight ends. I mean, yeah, like you said, Dawson Knox is going to be that red zone guy, is what we think, and obviously involved in the rundown. So we'll move on to O line, which will be the last group we talk about. And then obviously in the next episode, we'll go on the defense and cover every position group there. But O line is, again, obviously a bigger group, just the mass of people in it. There was some changes made. Obviously, Mitch Morse is gone. That I think is a big loss, which we'll get to. But it's still a solid group. Deion Dawkins, Cyrus Torrence, not Mitch, Connor McGovern, and David Edwards as well. So Spencer Brown, just a good group.
Mhm.
So that will kind of lead us off on the O line here. And Mike, I'll go to you first. How confident are you in the offensive line going in the year?
I would say, other than Josh Allen, it's the most stable total group in the
Mhm.
offense. Like besides Mitch Morris not being there to run the show anymore, I uh I still feel 100% confident that it will be a very good offensive line, and I don't foresee many annoyances slash like issues, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that caught us all by surprise last year with the success they had. Like, I think before, we were kind of just talking about the Bills as being mid as an O line, just like a
Hmm.
kind of a revolving door, guys going in and out. Remember Daryl Williams, John Feliciano, Cody Ford, like they can never really find those steady presences, and then they finally, they drafted again, and Osiris Torrance has some potential. I listed him as a breakout candidate for this
He's
year.
very good.
Yeah,
He's so
Deion
good.
Dawkins, I think, has been a mainstay over there on Josh's blind side, and then something we'll get into because me and Sam have some feelings about it, and Spencer Brown. But Sam, are you confident in this group? I know Mike said he was, so I'm kind of curious to see where you stand on that as well.
Yeah, I'm confident too in the group as a whole. I mean, they stayed healthy for all of last year, so hopefully that continues this year. But I mean, Torrance has a ton of potential. I don't think he allowed a sack in all of college at all, so that's
Mm-hmm.
good. Uh, Deion Dawkins is obviously your franchise tackle. Um, I've had my own opinions on Spencer Brown in the past, but he seems to be pretty solid at right tackle now for us. So we'll see. I mean, Mitch Morse is a great leader, but I don't think it's going to be too big of a hit to the O line, just in general.
Yeah.
We'll see though.
And the funny thing is when you go back and look at the kind of centers Aaron Cromer has always had, it's always been like bulkier, bigger guys, not like super agile movers like Mitch Morse has been. LA, he had Brian Allen. When he was previously with the Bills, he had Eric Wood. I just think McGovern makes more sense in terms of what he's trying to do at center. Um, Morris, I think he's going to be good for Jacksonville. I love Mitch Morris. He's still a solid center in this league. But they're trying to do something different on the offensive line. So I can't hate the move just because, there was a reasoning for it. It's not like they just cut him dry because of the money. Like there was more to it than that. Um, so I am confident in this group. Like you said, you did talk about the health being a factor, and even if guys have fallen down, like the team is invested in depth, especially when we talk about
True.
Cedric Van Pan Granger as potentially being a starter, in a year or two. Like that was great value. Like that's a damn good backup center.
They've
Um,
had that for a couple of years though, where their sixth, seventh guy has been like, they could probably start on another team.
yeah, and that's good to have though. Like it really is an important asset, and a lot of teams need. I think more teams need to do it just because like having that extra guy or so, it's not going to disrupt the flow as much. There's not going to be, I feel like what the saying is like you're as good as your weakest link. Like if you had to plug in Cedric Van Granger, like that's not
They
a
have
bad
Lyle
weak link.
Collins too.
Yeah, that's another name I was just about to mention. Like Lyle Collins played guard in his rookie season with Dallas, and Bean had mentioned that he can play guard, so he's somebody who can play as tackle and guard, and I like that move as a depth piece. And then obviously got your boy Will Clapp, backup center, another
Yes, he
backup
will.
center. Yes, he will.
Ben's next
And
jersey
so
right there.
yeah, that's one of my favorite players of all time. It's not even debated. But yeah, it's a very solid group, and I would agree with you, Mike. I would say that's the steadiest part outside of Josh on this offense. But that will kind of talk. Sam talked about it. Spencer Brown. Me and Sam. I want to start by apologizing to Spencer Brown, like publicly, because I was the biggest Spencer Brown hater in the first 2 years of his career. I thought this guy was terrible, which he was. He
He was
was not
decent as
good.
a rookie.
He would no,
He
no,
was
he wasn't.
okay. I mean, like as a run blocker, sure, but like as a pass protector, like he was just so raw. To see him go out there against like elite edge rushers and get beat, it was rough to watch at times. And this year he really just took that step that I didn't think he was going to make personally. And so that brings me to the next discussion, which is something that has been floated out there. Would you give Spencer Brown a big contract extension? I want to get Mike's opinion on this first, just because I haven't heard his take on it too much. I would say he's going to be in that 12 to 15 million dollar a year, maybe even more, just because that's what the
Even
market is.
more.
Mike McGlinchey makes $15 million a year. And do you
Man,
think he's a better? Do you think he's a better
fuck
tackle than Mike
no.
McGlinchey?
I would
You don't
not
think?
pay him. No,
I
it's not
I
even that.
think
I
he's
wouldn't
going to
pay
get that
him.
money. I really do.
Where though?
The Bills
You're
either
gonna clear up
next
all
year.
this money to give fucking Spencer Brown that big of a bag? You
I would
just
don't be
completely
shocked.
fucking shit on your receiver room to extend Spencer Brown? What
I'm
the
saying
fuck?
it's not out of possibility. He has
Um,
been listed as and labeled as the next guy to get a big contract extension with the Bills.
I know he deserves a quality extension for
So
sure.
what does a Spencer Brown extension look like to you? For you to say that it's fair and say that he deserves it, because his agent is going to go to the Bills and be like, "We're better than Mike McGlinchey. We're better than these guys. We want this money." And the Bills might drive the price down a little bit, but you're still going to be paying him a pretty penny. So where does that money look? What does that money look like to you?
For me to be like, okay, this is fine. 4 years, mm, 52 million.
Okay.
I'd say that you fit in like the low to mid 50s for 4 years. I would say that's where I'd feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Anything more than that, I feel like it's kind of an overpay. And I'm not even gonna lie, at that point, like if he really wants $18 million, I would trade his ass tomorrow, roll the dice with Lyle Collins. $18 million for a right tackle is just too much.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
sorry.
probably closer to the real. I'm just talking in terms of what they're going to approach the Bills with. Like as a ceiling, 18
He's had
seems like
one really good year. He was solid his rookie year.
you'd
Yes,
be
his second
surprised though.
year he
Like
had injury.
that happens so many times in the NFL where a guy will come to a team and be like, I had a really good year. It's only been one really good year, but I want a contract extension, and it happens a lot. So
You know what, Spencer Brown, you
I
have
I
what, a
do like
fifth
that
round
third.
pick,
Yeah, no, he's a third round pick.
third round pick?
Yeah.
So what, this year and
hmm
next year? Or just this year?
Um, this year and next year, I think. I no, it might be just be this year. I don't know off the top of my
If
head.
it's just this year, I give it a whirl. At worst, I would franchise tag him. But
I
if you
think the franchise
possibly,
tags more than what I said though. I think it's a lot.
I gotta
Like
look it up.
No, because it doesn't go by right tackle. It goes by just tackle, and you got to think like,
Really?
yeah, it's
I
not
didn't know that.
left tackle or right tackle. It's just
Oh
tackle.
my God. Okay. Yeah, I'm not paying Spencer Brown 22
What's the
million
tag? What
dollars.
is it?
22 million?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
Get
more
the
than I
fuck out of
said.
here. There's no way. There's no
I'm giving
fucking way.
him like 11 to 14, somewhere
Yeah,
around there
yeah,
a
I would
year.
Yeah.
say that 12 to 15 seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Like
God,
a
anything
4-year,
more.
$55 million deal. That seems right.
That's about right. You
That's
know?
Yeah,
probably
that's
right.
fine. I mean, they're paying Knox like what, 9 million a year, so
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I mean, when I
that's
look
don't
at my
even.
phone in fucking 9 months and I see Spencer Brown just signed a contract extension with the Bills for 4 years, $72 million, and be like, fuck yeah. They got rid of the fucking the best receiver in franchise history. If you know, you know. Fucking for Spencer Brown.
Yeah, yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. That's. I get it.
This has been
Especially
like an
someone.
upsetting episode. I feel like every corner I look at, there's like a fucking monster behind the door.
I know. Yeah, I know. I know.
Jesus.
So another thing I wanted to talk about with the O line, is Mitch Morse, and I kind of briefly talked about this when we were talking about McGovern, but I'll go to Sam first. Like, this was a leader. This is a guy on the team for a long time. Like you already talked about it a little bit, but how big of a loss is Mitch Morse to you? Like, he's been a steady top 10-ish center in the NFL. So, what do you think?
yeah, he's one of the more underrated centers, I'd say, in the NFL for sure. I mean, it's hard to replace his leadership. I mean, he's been a captain for years now. Um, so yeah, it's going to be difficult, but I think a guy like Connor McGovern with, you know, the correct coaching could become a very good starting center for us. I don't think he's going to be the same level, but as a unit, I mean, it should be pretty good still.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. Like, this is still a solid unit, um, even without Morse. I don't know if you feel the same way, Mike. I mean, we all are kind of just comfortable with the line and the way it is. So I think that kind of tells us all that we're fine with Morse going. So, how big of a loss do you think Mitch is, and the O line?
I mean, I do think the leadership will play a role this season, but to be fair, we got rid of like 4 captains plus on this roster. I
Yeah.
think they're really trying to start from square one in terms of who has a voice in the locker room and really try
Honestly,
to shake it
I
up.
I don't know if I agree with that entirely. Yeah, they let go of some captains, but they have captains. Like,
They do, but they let go of what, 5?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know Deion
Poyer and
Dawkins is one.
Micah,
Deion Dawkins,
Gabe and
Josh Allen.
Steph.
I would
though they're
I
gone.
think Milano is a captain. I'm not too sure. Von
Either
Miller's a
way, you're about
captain.
to have a
That's
completely
whatever.
new, little like quote unquote roster of leadership.
Right.
They
Yeah.
lost
I
like
mean, but I
five
also
captains.
think
Yeah.
I also don't think the hierarchy changes drastically just because just speaking strictly on offense, Josh is still the guy. Like
Yeah,
you're
that's
gonna
a given though.
you're gonna take the he's gonna call the shots. And then I think Deion Dawkins is actually 30 years old, which blew my mind the other day. Um, so yeah, I think you got some adults in the room. I mean, even if you want to call Deion an adult, he's a good guy, but he's a goofball. Um, so yeah, it's a room that I'm comfortable with. You see the depth on the screen. There's a lot of guys who can challenge for some roster spots. Obviously, you got Ryan Vandemark, who's an interesting swing tackle option for you. Um, Alec Anderson's a nice guard. I mean, they have some nice players there, so absolutely comfortable with that group. And we'll move on. So the final segment of the show, which is the questions portion. Now, there's a couple repetitive ones, so I didn't want to pick every single question. So we're going to answer a couple. We'll kind of go around the the podcast here and kind of answer the questions for you guys. So I do appreciate you guys submitting questions. It does mean a lot. But we will start off with this question here. And I think it's an interesting question that I wanted to talk about first. This comes from B Rich 902. How is Joe Brady going to lower Josh Allen's interception numbers? Mike, what do you think?
He won't.
won't?
I mean, he won't. I mean,
You don't think he will? You don't think he's going to go down from 19? Because he had
will.
19.
He very well could. But honestly, is that going to have really that much to do with Joe Brady as opposed to Josh Allen? You know what I mean? Ken Dorsey wasn't making him throw all those picks. Brian Daboll doesn't make him throw picks. No one makes it like that. That's solely an Allen thing. I don't look at that as a coordinator's problem. Well, it's his problem, but like coordinator's responsibility. You know, like prime example here when Jameis Winston was throwing 30 interceptions. Was his offensive coordinator that year the reason he threw 30 interceptions? No.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't disagree more. I mean, I just think that it's not the coordinator can mitigate the problem, which I don't even think is as big of a problem that people make it out to be. Anyways, like I put it out on TikTok earlier yesterday, and on Twitter you can check it out. Just kind of diving into the Josh Allen interception discourse, and I think it's overblown. Is he a turnover prone guy? Does he make mistakes? Yes, he does. Like that's just who he is. But can a coordinator limit that to an extent? I think so. You never want to take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, right? That would be a colossal mistake. But if you put him in situations where he doesn't have to feel forced to give a certain player the ball, like Stephon Diggs, it makes for less mistakes. It does, just naturally. And I think running the ball more than they have in years past will by default lower the chances of throwing more picks. So I think you combine those, the fact that he doesn't have to, force feed Diggs the ball anymore, to keep him happy, which I think there was a little bit of that in this offense. I think you will have less turnovers. I really do. That's where I stand on it. I don't think he's ever going to throw a 19 again in his career, to be completely honest with you. I really don't. I think this year was a one-off thing. It was a lot of unlucky stuff. Like you saw the arm punts. Like Gabe Davis had one go right off his hands. I was drunk. I was at the game, but I was pissed off. Like it's just a lot of unlucky stuff. Like so, yes, I think a coordinator can certainly limit that. I don't know how you feel about it, Sam, but what do you think?
So I agree with Mike here, actually. I don't think that Joe Brady is going to be the reason he throws less picks. I think it's going to be really on Allen and his decision making. I don't think that his decision making is a big problem necessarily. I think, like you said, he was pretty unlucky last year with some arm punt type things. I don't know, some bad deflections here and there. But yeah, I think it does come down to Allen really in the end.
Yeah. Yep. And thanks for submitting that question. We'll go on to the next one. Another fun one. Is Sean McDermott the problem in Buffalo if this season fails again?
Yes.
And this is an interesting question because what is failure this season? Like, is failure missing the playoffs? Sure, yes. But is a failure just not winning a playoff game? Like I don't know what this season's definition of failure is. For me, failure is not winning the division. I think the bare minimum is winning the division. You have to win the division. And I don't know, at least win a playoff game, sure. So I don't know. I if he's the problem, it's hard to say for me. It really is because this roster is really young, younger than before. It doesn't have as high expectations as it did in years past. And if he can still coach them to a 12-5, a 12-11 win season and win a playoff game, like, can you really say Sean McDermott is the problem? I don't
Yes.
think you can. I don't think you can.
He is
I really
literally the
don't.
reason we're fucking here.
I disagree with that.
I
If he
want to
goes 12
say
and 5, that's a success for the
yes.
roster that we have right now.
13
Yes.
seconds.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm gonna get into that.
That was
all right?
years ago, though.
I'm gonna
But
get
that's
into
my
that.
fucking point. So we're just gonna let him start from the bottom of the mountain, get close to the mountaintop,
I
never reach the mountaintop,
I understand
and
what
then
you're
just be
saying.
like, okay, well now it's been 5 years and our core is getting fucking old, and now we gotta like low key retool this shit. Thank God we have Josh Allen, and now we're just gonna give him a pass. Fuck that.
No, I understand what you're saying. I actually do. I do. I agree with most of it. I will say this: if it's another scenario where they're 12-5, and the Bills are better than what we thought, and they're going in the postseason, and we genuinely think they can really make a run at this, then I think you can really. If you're not expecting them to make the Super Bowl, I don't think you can be as hard on him as you have in the years past. If we're just talking about this season. Um, but if he has another crazy blunder, I really think you gotta think about it. I
You
mean,
just have to think about it. What is it gonna take?
you gotta remember who our owner is. You gotta be realistic. I mean, so
Yeah.
I don't
If he
know.
doesn't win a playoff game, then yeah, he should be gone. For sure.
Yeah, I it's tough to say. It's a really hard question to answer, honestly. I appreciate the question though. But I think there's a lot that goes into it. Like, I don't think you could just fire him just because of one thing. But we'll see. This is the last one that's going to come from Keenan Taylor on Instagram here, and it is Justin Shorter's odds of making the team. And I know this is a question everybody loves to talk about. It's the player everybody loves to talk about in Justin Shorter. We briefly talked about this earlier. I guess I'll take the lead on this one. I want to say, as of right now, he's got about a 35% chance of making the team.
Very precise.
I I don't think it's like I don't think I think he's more of a practice squad guy to me, Like, you're not putting Justin Shorter on this roster to go out there and separate and catch footballs for your offense. I don't think that. I think at this point in time, until he has proven me otherwise, he is a special teams gunner, wide receiver 6 or 7 at best on teams that carry 7. And like, it's up to you to decide what the value in that is. And it's up to Bills to decide what the value in it is because, there is certain people in that organization that really like that. But it's interesting. So, I'll let you take it, Sam. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of went through it there. If he can be a good special teamer, he will probably have a better chance. But we have a lot of depth at receiver, if that makes sense. Kind of a lot of
Mid-depth.
mid receivers, I would say, that are competing for the same spot. So it's going to be tough for him. I'm kind of with you. I don't think it's that high of a chance. I think he's more of a practice squad player right now.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you're probably in the agreement there as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree with both of what you said.
Yeah. I mean, and I get it. Like, he's a camp guy. He's fun. He's exciting. He's a ball of clay. Like, you want to see him do well. I'm not saying I don't want to see him well. I'm rooting for him. I hope he does very well. Like,
You think people would be this hyped if he wasn't 6'4", 225, and
probably
he was
not. No,
6'1",
probably not.
fucking 190?
No, not at all.
He's not Randy
But
Moss,
that's
people.
how
He's
it
not
works.
Randy Moss.
That's People love projecting, and that's how it is. So, I mean, yeah, that'll pretty much do it. This was a fun episode. We will do a defensive deep dive in the near future. Again, thanks to Sam for coming on. It was a lot of fun having you on, and again, probably going to do that in the future as well. So,
Yep.
Thanks for
Thanks for
everybody for
having me.
tuning in. Yeah, and you can check us out again on Spotify as always, also on YouTube as from Views from the Gravel Lot. You can also check us out on TikTok, and you can find us on Twitter right now at Bills_Access, where I'll post all of our clips and highlights. And on Instagram, you can also find us at Views from the Gravel Lot. And that'll do it. So have a good night, everybody, and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.